Raise your hand if you've ever had to memorize the Pythagorean Theorem. You know the one. A squared plus b squared equals sine c squared. It's the cornerstone of high school geometry, the absolute bane of ninth graders everywhere, and the namesake of an ancient Greek mathematician named Pythagoras. When you picture Pythagoras, you probably imagine a boring old guy in a toga, sitting in a marble room, quietly drawing triangles in the dirt. Well, rip up your textbooks, because the real Pythagoras wasn't just a math nerd. He was a charismatic mystical cult leader. He ran a secretive, incredibly powerful religious brotherhood that effectively took over a city-state. His followers worshipped the number 10, believed that eating beans was a form of cannibalism, and were so obsessed with whole numbers that they literally murdered a guy for discovering decimals. Welcome to the dark, wild, and incredibly weird true story of the Pythagorean Brotherhood. Let's do some math. Act 1. The man, the myth, the commune. Before we get to the cult, we have to talk about the man. Pythagoras was born around 570 BCE on the Greek island of Samos. But he didn't stay there long. He spent his youth traveling the ancient world, Egypt, Babylon, maybe even India, soaking up every ounce of mathematical, astronomical, and religious knowledge he could find. When he finally returned to Greece, he was practically a rock star of ancient philosophy. Around 530 BCE, he moved to a Greek colony in southern Italy called Croton. And there, he didn't just open a school. He started a lifestyle brand. He founded the Pythagorean Brotherhood, and this was an exclusive, highly secretive organization divided into two strict tiers. First, you had the akousmatikoi, the listeners. These were the outer circle. They lived in the city, kept their own property, and were only allowed to listen to Pythagoras speak from behind a curtain. They never actually saw his face. But if you were truly dedicated, you could level up to the inner circle, the mathematikoi, the learners. To join this group, you had to give up all your worldly possessions, swear a vow of absolute silence for 5 entire years, and move into the communal compound. Once inside, you were subjected to a set of rules that were equal parts brilliant and utterly insane. Act 2. Worship the Tetractes and fear the bean. The core belief of the Pythagorean Brotherhood was simple. All is number. They didn't just use math to describe the universe. They believed math was the universe. They believed numbers were divine entities with their own genders and personalities. Odd numbers were male and good. Even numbers were female and evil. Their ultimate object of worship was a geometric symbol called the Tetractes, a triangle made of 10 dots. They would literally pray to it because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, which they considered the perfect mystical number of the cosmos. But the math was just the beginning. Pythagoras also believed in the transmigration of souls, basically reincarnation. He claimed he could remember his past lives and believed that human souls could be reborn into animals. Because of this, the cult was strictly vegetarian, except for one massive, bizarre loophole. The absolute number 1 unbreakable rule of the Pythagorean cult was, do not eat, touch, or even look at fava beans. Why beans? Well, ancient historians give us a few wild theories. Theory 1. Pythagoras thought beans looked like human fetuses. Theory 2. Because beans are hollow, they acted as little elevators for the souls of the dead to travel from the underworld to Earth. Theory 3. The funniest one. Flatulence. Pythagoras believed that passing gas expelled a tiny part of your soul, slowly killing you from the inside out. Whatever the reason, beans were public enemy number 1. But unfortunately for Pythagoras, a much bigger threat was brewing from inside his own teachings. Act 3. The deadly diagonal. The Brotherhood's entire religion was built on the idea that the universe was perfect, rational, and could be explained entirely using whole numbers and neat fractions. But then came a guy named Hippasus. Hippasus was a brilliant member of the mathematikoi. One day he was playing around with a simple 1x1 square. He drew a diagonal line from one corner to the other and decided to calculate its length using his boss's own formula. A squared plus b squared equals sine c squared. He solved for the diagonal and discovered it was the square root of 2. He started trying to write this as a simple fraction, but he couldn't. No matter how hard he tried, the numbers kept going on forever without repeating. 1.4, 1, 4, 2, 1, 3, 5 and to infinity. Hippasus had accidentally discovered irrational numbers. To us, this is just a neat math fact. To the Pythagoreans, this was a theological apocalypse. If a number could be chaotic and infinite, then the universe wasn't perfect. Their entire religion was a lie. According to legend, the Brotherhood was absolutely terrified. They swore Hippasus to secrecy. But Hippasus, being a true scientist, wanted to share his discovery with the world. So while the cult was out on a sailing trip in the Mediterranean, the Brotherhood decided to protect their perfect rational universe. They grabbed Hippasus, tied him up, and threw him overboard to drown. They murdered a man to cover up a decimal point. Act 4. Death by vegetable. As you can imagine, a hyper-secretive, wealthy cult that meddles in local politics and occasionally drowns people eventually rubs the locals the wrong way. By around 509 BCE, the citizens of Croton had had enough. The tipping point came when a wealthy, powerful noble named Cylon applied to join the Brotherhood. Pythagoras looked at him, realized he was an arrogant jerk, and rejected him. Cylon was furious. He rallied the citizens of Croton, marched on the Pythagorean compound, and set the meeting house on fire while the mathematicoi were trapped inside. Many of the inner circle burned to death. But what about Pythagoras? Well, the legend of his death is the perfect poetic ending for a man with his specific phobias. Supposedly, Pythagoras managed to escape the burning building. He ran for his life, the angry mob hot on his heels. He was making a clean getaway until he suddenly came to a dead stop. Blocking his path was a massive, blooming field of fava beans. To cross the field meant trampling the beans, risking contact with the souls of the dead, and breaking his most sacred rule. Pythagoras looked at the beans, looked back at the armed mob, and made his choice. He refused to step into the field. The mob caught up to him, and they killed him right there on the edge of the bean patch. The irrational legacy. Pythagoras didn't survive the bean field, but his Brotherhood didn't entirely die out. His surviving followers scattered across Greece, bringing his teachings, both the brilliant math and the weird mysticism, with them. Despite the cults, the murders, and the dietary restrictions, the Pythagorean Theorem went on to become the foundation of trigonometry, architecture, and modern engineering. We used it to build pyramids, cross oceans, and fly to the moon. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the dark side of mathematics, hit that like button, subscribe for more weird history, and whatever you do, don't eat the beans. See you next time.